Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome to another talk with Macca of the Outer Circle. How are you today?
Pretty well, mate. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. So, Games Workshop has decided to shit the bed, and there are many, many, many theories as to why they've been shitting the bed. So, why not entertain ourselves by talking about it a little bit?
Copyright law, isn't it a funny thing? So, I guess the big defense that people like to leap to, because uh, billion-dollar companies need defense. I don't think there's enough protection for billion-dollar companies. All these mums and dads and teenagers all sitting at home trying to create products. They're too much competition for a billion-dollar company. So we need people to defend them. And of course, the big one people love to talk about is, oh, well, you have to be seen to protect your copyright. And I agree. There's nothing wrong protecting your copyright, your intellectual property. The problem comes in how you do it. There's you know, there's what's an excessive amount of defense, and it shows where they actually do have legal standing, where they don't. When you look at something like that Chapter House lawsuit and how pear-shaped that went for them, some of the claims on that was so ridiculous that it sort of goes beyond description.
Yes. And oddly enough, yeah, there are actually some people who are trying to defend this, as backwards as that sounds. And the two I've seen is either they must defend their copyright, or they have to make money, and that's why they're trying to create a walled garden with Warhammer Plus. Now, as for the copyright thing, yeah, no, you are legally required to defend your copyright, which is one of the reasons why we probably do need a large scale rework of copyright at some point, because defending your copyright in the traditional sense, which requires you essentially to go after anything and everything, is not only unworkable in the age of the internet, it is utterly ridiculous because you would have to strike almost everything. You would have to troll the internet continuously. And that doesn't work, obviously. Nor does it benefit anyone either. Going after fan animators is a net detriment to Warhammer, both to the hobbyist and to the company. For us, it means less quality products. For them, it means less free advertisement.
So to me, intellectual property is a really funny one because when you have a physical object, let's say it's a screw thread. A screw thread is a mechanical device. It can be measured, it can be quantified, and it's very easy for someone to put a copyright out. They say these are the dimensions of the screw thread I've designed, and they can apply for a patent on it. When another company goes, geez, we need a screw thread that does a similar job, they can go and they can take that same sort of idea and tweak it. They can change a lot of those dimensions. It's now considered a new product, even if it is, you pick two up and you look at them side by side, you think these are the same bloody thing. Well, with intellectual property, it's a weird one because Games Workshop's out there going, you can't imitate our product. But what the hell's that mean?
It's complete nonsense. Like, because there's no legal ground for that. Like, you can't imitate our product. Okay, GW, I'm looking at your product line right now, and I see you've imitated a few products in the past as well, haven't you?
Well, you're going to look at something like an Adeptus Arbites and say, oh, that is nothing like Judge Dredd.
Oh, nothing like Judge Dredd. Absolutely nothing.
So, where do you draw that line? And I think where a lot of the problems come in is people see these blanket statements from Games Workshop and go, oh, I can't do anything. And they police themselves, as it were, because they're afraid of this sort of pseudo legal talk. But it's not actual legal talk where Games Workshop is putting out there like, this is the law, these are things you can't do. It's Games Workshop saying, please don't do this. We can't stop you for most of this, but please don't do it anyway.
Which is why they refer to them as guidelines, but they couch it in very authoritative speak to make you think, like, oh god, they must have had a team of lawyers go over this, right? And figure out what you can and can't do. Like, they're just trying to be helpful about it.
Yeah, so not to harp on the subject too much, but the Chapter House lawsuit's a great example. If you read through the lawsuit papers, there's like 100 and something articles that Games Workshop claimed on. And to give people an idea of the absurdity, one of these things was Roman numerals on a shoulder pad. Another one was the use of halberds. Another was the use of the term pauldron, as in the piece of armor that goes on your shoulder. These are all terms that, pauldron, halberd are hundreds of years old. Go to any Renaissance fair, they're not walking around with something that doesn't infringe on Games Workshop's copyright. And yet these are things they actually tried to sue someone for.
Mm-hmm. And again, this is the company that once had parodies of all of the Fellowship of the Ring in their official rule set as well.
Well, I mean, at what point do you say Warhammer Fantasy as a whole kind of was a ripoff of the Tolkien's world, just overlaid over a map of our own?
Well,
That's basically what the system was.
Because I have argued again and again that you always have to take some inspiration from something, because pretty much everything has been done. The problem is when you have done your thing and then you try to go after everyone else trying to make their thing as well, which is exactly what GW is doing right now.
So if I could give one example of what I think is an absurdity, you've got StarCraft and Warcraft. So Blizzard wanted to make a game with Games Workshop in the 90s. For whatever reason, that relationship fell apart. Blizzard ended up using the assets they'd already designed to create Warcraft and StarCraft. And now you have an inverse of that happening, where you have a lot of Games Workshop products that seem to be copying what they did. You have Dawn of War 3, which is copying aspects of StarCraft 2, and you've got things like that Hammerfall bunker or whatever it was for the Primaris Marine range, which looks exactly like StarCraft
bunker. Yep.
And it's like the imitation has now become imitated by the originator. It's such a weird, and what are they going to do? They're going to turn around to Blizzard and say, well, you can't copy our stuff. Sue them over their use of Marines in space, are they? But someone putting up, animations on the internet that they drew themselves. Oh no, that's where the line is.
Yeah. So basically, this is absolutely a power play. This is not them protecting their IP. That is not what they're doing here. Because this is far too egregious, far too wide-reaching for that. And they don't even have half of the rights they claim they have. The worst part, too, is this is such a undefined aspect as well. Because it has nothing to do with monetization either. That's one of the things that GW have kind of been bringing forward. Oh no, if you demonetize it, you can have this up. That doesn't matter. Like, that has nothing to do with copyright law in that regard. It is whether or not you are in direct competition, whether or not you are a replacement or could be reasonably mistaken for, or if you are identifiably the same thing. But again, these are very loose legalistic terms. I've looked into some of the legal systems around copyright in the US, and it is a complete shit show. They have granted copyright, for example, for logos that have been the same but designed completely differently because the words were the same, and they have denied copyright on that exact same basis as well. So nobody knows. Like, could a fan animations go like, no, this is fair use? Possibly, but nobody knows. And then where does the cutoff line goes? What about lore videos? Is that fair use? I would assume so, but I don't know. What about fan animations? We don't know. What about fan drawings? We don't know.
Well, yeah, it's a funny situation. If I can go slightly left of field, the late US Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalise, I was watching a video with him recently, and he was talking about the difficulties in how we apply laws, and said, like, people don't understand that a law is written in a time period, and that it only understands that time period, and that's why you have to revisit laws. So in his case, he brought up the death penalty in the United States. Now, the death penalty has been challenged on the grounds of it violating another amendment. I think it's the 14th, cruel and unusual punishment. He says, however, when the law was written, the death penalty um, was a thing. So cruel and unusual punishment was not deemed at the time they wrote the law to be a problem. Uh, the death penalty was normal. And so you can't, in hindsight, with today's morals, turn around and say, oh, well, that's how it works. Well, it's the same sort of thing, copyright law. It was written by people in a time period long before the internet, long before this worldwide reach of intellectual property. They never took it into account. They wrote it with a sort of strict guidance in mind. And that strict guidance wasn't things like who's copying words out of one another's novels, or who's making animation based on someone else's animations. They wrote copyright laws based around, things like building a car engine. So the whole thing needs a complete, the whole thing needs a complete rework because the people at the time didn't envisage it. And so trying to make those laws fit, it's a square peg round hole situation, basically, is what I'm getting at. You can't take a law that's, decades old and then say it applies in the modern times to a completely different context. It just won't work.
And this has also been left completely alone by most corporate companies, because that's the next point as well. Valve does not discourage fan animations. Oh, on the au contraire, in fact, they will pay you for making a good Valve model in Dota. They will even give you access to their animation sets and their own 3D figures to do this. And they will never then go and like, oh, well, this is a copyright violation. That's absurd.
Well, Lucasfilm released all their sound files for free, so you could use all their sound special effects. There's a trade-off between stomping on the community and supporting the community because it actually furthers your own goals as a company. And I think Games Workshop is standing on the wrong side of that line, where if they encourage the community and give them assets and say, create stuff to bring people into our world, but if you're going to parody us or put us down, you need to make it very obvious that you're doing so and draw the line there. But when they say to people, you can't do any of it, well, it doesn't work like that because things like parody are protected by law.
Yeah, and the reasonable thing to do would, of course, be to do what, again, Disney does, because Disney is the third approach. Disney knows about all of this fan content. They don't care, because it's free advertisement for them. Only in extreme circumstances, when they were trying to sell the Baby Yoda doll, for example, and a bunch of people had already started making handmade ones, did they start sending out cease and desists, because that was a direct market that they were moving into, and it was a physical product for a physical product.
And that's where you get into Warhammer Plus.
Yes, because that is the real thing here. They're not protecting their copyright. They are trying to create a monopoly on fan animations because that is the only thing of value Warhammer Plus is currently offering. It is to begin with, I was being very, very generous to it because I didn't know about this plan, of course. I was like, okay, you get access to a bunch of free books and some content. Okay, mostly YouTube content worth nothing. You can get that from better sources on YouTube anyway. But the free access to books is nice for like, what is it, $5 a month? And then animations? Fair enough. But in retrospect now, all they have is the animations. And that is the cudgel they are using to beat people over the head with to force them into accepting the subscription. That's a very different ball game right there.
Well, yeah. How do you look at it is do you say, oh, they're going to release this content and it's going to compete directly with the community, therefore it's going to be a higher production value? Because it's all right for people to turn around and expect a certain quality from the community. It's a different thing entirely if it's a professional organization doing it. People are going to want to see a lot of quality. And I don't think people truly understand, because people always like to come to me and say, oh, Macca, you don't understand how a business works or how the industry works or whatever. Well, do they understand what goes into creating something like Warhammer Plus? It's not a 5-minute job with 3 people. You're talking about having to have, let's say it's a battle report. You need to have the participants of the battle report. You need to have the camera crew, the sound guy, someone to orchestrate it. You then need to edit that footage. You need to do the special effects on it. You have to have your moderators to put it up online. There's a lot of stuff to curate there. And on top of that, they're still doing all their videos advertising for their new product lines that come out and a whole bunch of other things. All of that has a very big cost associated with it. It is not something you throw together in 5 minutes. And of course, then you've now got an animation department within the company. Well, that's not cheap either. Animation, the computers, the software, all of that is quite an expensive thing. And so the amount of stuff that can come out on this service with the subscription they're charging, I don't know. I see some big red flags if I was an investor. And I think that's why they're turning around and trying to police it so hard. Is they're like, oh, we're in a financial hole here. If we don't make this thing succeed, we're in trouble.
There's also the fact that I think people are going to expect something very different. People look at Astartes and they think it's the best thing ever, right? Because it's made by one dude. That's incredible. But if Games Workshop had released Astartes, my reaction would probably be, all right, this looks great and all, but 1 minute segments every few months, you're a multi-million-dollar company. Chop chop.
Yeah, people are going to want to see an Ultramarine movie level of product. Hopefully not a level of screenwriting, but at least that level of product size and vocal talents, because that movie had a lot of very renowned actors in it. They're not going to want to see 1 minute animations. They're going to want their money's worth. And how do you create a streaming service which streaming was great when it took off because it provided people an outlet to get instant access to their media. But as time has gone on, every company thought, well, if Netflix and Stan or whatever have a big slice of the pie, I can just create my own streaming service and instantly have their level of success. That's when you get your CBS All Access, which tanks phenomenally. So,
Yep.
Games Workshop has seen that and gone, that's the way we want to head. We want to whore our IP out. So they create a streaming service. The problem is they've got no content on it. And when you have the choice as a consumer, what do I go for? Do I go for, a Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever it may be? Or do I go for Warhammer Plus? Well, Warhammer Plus is going to have to offer a lot more than, a free book every month or something, or after 12 months, a free miniature in order to justify that.
And especially now that they've managed to really piss off a lot of people. As thing too, I'm planning, I'll make a video probably this Monday, basically saying that if you want to boycott anything, boycott Warhammer Plus. Because this is their golden child. They are expecting this to earn money, and they are expecting this to be a steady source of income. But I had an interview with Rakita Law yesterday from when I'm recording this, and he brought up a very interesting point, namely that I think, or he thinks, that Warhammer or GW has oversold the popularity of their IP right now. Because this streaming service, as you point out, it's going to cost a lot of money. A lot of people are going to have this as their full-term job now. How many subscribers are they going to require for this just to pay for itself? Never mind becoming profitable. I mean, they're going to need thousands, tens of thousands, probably. Like, I would imagine anything below 100,000 would probably be a failure.
Well, what's one staff member in the UK? Let's say £500 a month.
At least.
Sorry, at a bare minimum for the lowest paid
like
possible.
That's shit.
Casual,
£500 a month is nothing.
Yeah. So like the absolute lowest of the low casual worker, they pull them in for a couple of days a week type thing.
Yes.
That's
like
still
literally
going to be
part-time worker.
That's still going to be like 100 subscriptions for that one person.
Right, so let's the average salary in the UK is about £2,000 per month. 2k pounds. So that's obviously going to be the average with like the dentists and then way less than that. So let's say part-time worker, right, fairly lowly paid, £1,000 per month, right?
Okay.
£1,000 divided by what?
I mean, it's not a £5 subscription service, but if it was, that's still 200 people to pay for that one person.
What was it? $6 per month? Was that?
Something like that, yeah. I was just going off roughly £5 to do
Yeah,
quick
so
maths.
5 to 6, right? So you're talking 100, 200 subscribers per employee they have there, just to cover that person's wages.
And that's not covering the bills like your electricity, your internet connectivity, which is going to be pretty important to them because they're going to have their own servers to host their content on. They aren't cheap.
The app development, that I guarantee you has cost tens of thousands of pounds, if not more, because that shit ain't cheap.
You know what else costs a bit of money? The two dies for those miniatures they're promising at the 12-month mark because they've now committed to that 12 months. When the minute they turn around and said, you get this for a year and you get these, that's a contract that will hold up in a court of war between them and the customer. So they have to keep this thing going for a minimum of 12 months, which means they've got to wear those expenses for a minimum of 12 months. This
And
is,
then you
you
add
know,
on
and
again software, you add on machinery, you add on equipment, cameras, lights, set building, the people who are actually going to be there. This is costing a lot of money, and it's all running costs as well. Like, I really do think that anything under 100,000 subs odd or so is probably going to be a failure for them. Bearing in mind, too,
you know,
they're not looking for something that just pays for itself here. They're looking for something that can be genuinely profitable in the long term.
the thing that I find interesting is knowing how other big companies operate. So the example I'll use is CBS. CBS used Star Trek Discovery as their stepping off point. They wanted to try and use that new IP of an old IP to pull people into their streaming service. Look, we're the only place you can get a new Star Trek show. You remember Star Trek? Um, they then went out and gave out free subscriptions. And that way, when they went to their annual financial meetings, they were able to turn around and go, look, we haven't made a lot of money off this thing yet, but look at how many new subscriptions we've had the last couple of months. So we're
Mhm.
going to make money next time. I see that happening. I guarantee you, I will put my left nut on it, that in White Dwarf, you're going to see a free subscription. This month, get a free month subscription to Warhammer Plus contained within.
They
Guarantee
will
it.
absolutely want to try and big up their numbers via stuff like that. Absolutely. Because, again, it's a lot of money. It is a huge investment. It's a huge one term investment and it's a huge continuous investment. Because I'll guarantee you this too. The guy that did Astartes was earning a lot of money on YouTube and Patreon. They must have offered him at the very least something comparable to that. So he's probably costing as much as half a dozen employees, if not more.
Thing is though, like the smart approach in my mind would have been to do what they did with like a Witcher. Just find some other streaming company and say, here you go, here's the IP, you make a thing with it, you ship it on your streaming service, and we'll get paid by you for, the IP. That's what they should have done. And my theory, can't confirm any of this, is that they didn't do that because they think that there's more money to be made in having it in-house, maximizing the profits.
I think so too, because I think their end goal here is they want out of this market. I genuinely think that GW knows what kind of an outrage this is going to create. They understand the bridges they are going to burn, but they are not interested in this consumer base anymore. The traditional tabletop gamer is not their market audience right now. They are trying to move on from that and into selling their IP. They want to sell toys, they want to sell books, they want to sell video games, they want to sell streaming services. And the models, I think, are going to be an ever more distant second and tertiary priority.
Well, they've got such an eclectic marketing strategy. They have a product which seems to have this tone that is all over the shop, where, they're trying to take something like a bloodletter, which should be this terrifying creature, and then they make some sort of chibi style art of it and put it up on their webpage.
Mhm.
And, it's marketed at either children or man children, and yet their children can't afford this hobby. So who are you marketing it at? and that is just not a sustainable approach. So if they want to maximize their market and try and do that thing that all companies want to do, which is extend their reach and draw in new audiences, they can't rely on all the old hands who've propped them up for all this time and actually paid their bills. They need to look for that quote unquote more diverse and inclusive community. And so I think the only way that's feasible for them to do so is to actually go out there and put out a product to everyone by trying to turn it into the next, Witcher, Game of Thrones, whatever it may be, which
The
is
next big
fine
thing.
in theory. But the problem with that is I don't think they fully comprehend that outside of the immediate circle of people who are in this hobby or have friends, who've stumbled across it on the internet or something, that you can't just do that. You need to have some sort of network behind it that allows it to get out into the mainstream. And 40K is not yet there, I don't think. It is, Game of Thrones became popular after a couple of years on HBO Max. It wasn't an instant hit where by week 2 there's 4 million people watching or something, or whatever it may be, 400 million people. It grew over time. It gained in popularity, but it was hosted on a big network initially. You're not going to see that. You're not going to have like random housewives turn around and go, "Oh wow, I saw a space marine the other day walking past the store. I'm going to Google that and find out if there's a streaming service that caters to just that thing." And then hop on there and find one animation on that thing, and then a bunch of battle
And then
reports and
some painting
painting
tutorials and battle
tutorials.
reports, which you haven't the faintest idea. Wait, there's a game?
Yeah, and like it's just I don't know. To me, it's the most. It's like they took the Homer Simpson makeup shotgun, and that's their marketing strategy. They just fired it, and it's just blown a big image over the wall, and that's their marketing strategy. We want a service that caters to everyone, but it's also going to be a niche service hosted on our own servers, and we're also going to shoot the fandom at the same time as we do this. And we're making a product that only adults can afford, yet we're creating art style that's aimed at children. And oh my god, what are you doing, Games Workshop? No, you have so much to live for. Put the gun down.
I suspect part 2 of their grand plan here, because part 1 is to scorch earth, make the walled garden, drag in as much money as you can over as short a period as you can, and then go over to that Hasbro executive they recently hired and say, "Hey, you got any phone numbers to your old place of work?" And they'll go over there with a bunch of PowerPoint presentations and they'll show the last 3 years of growth. And they'll go, look, it's exploding. This is amazing. We're launching a Warhammer Plus streaming service. We're expecting so and so many subscribers. Look at the rise in subscribers as they give away free months to anyone and everyone with dog. And they'll try to entice a buyer. Because if they manage to get in the door to one of the big boys, we could potentially see like a simplified version of Kill Team, for example, pop up in box sets everywhere for maybe like $50, for example. They already made a couple of these, like Space Marine Adventures was one of them, and they want to just splatter this everywhere. Literally turn it into a toy, a thing that you buy your kids because they saw it on the television with flashy lights and shit.
It's gonna be a real shock to those kids when they see something like a Demon Oculabra, but uh,
I'm
no, it's
assuming that'll be parts of the fandoms that'll just kind of disappear. It's like quietly, that'll be the next step. They'll approach the wikis and go like, "So, copyright."
yeah. Well, I mean, is that going to be something they have as well, like some sort of interactive thing where they build their own wiki into their streaming service? And people are watching a show and they're like, "Oh, what's that thing?" And they can, wiki it on the spot or something. Who knows? But it's such a bizarre approach because they don't have to kill off the models side of things, but unfortunately, they can't change their business model now because they've committed too firmly to the path. They can't go back and say, "All right, we need to change it up. 3D printing is getting huge. Maybe we should look at starting to sell STLs." They can't bring themselves to do that. They can't bring themselves to lower price. I mean, there's a reason that the most pirated physical miniatures you see at Games Workshop, you're not seeing bolt action getting pirated.
No.
You're not seeing dystopian wars getting pirated because they've found the price that the customer is sort of happiest with. Games Workshop, yeah, okay, people still buy their product, they make a lot of money, yes, but clearly the amount of piracy should be telling us that there is a problem there when it comes to the price of their product. So they could change direction, but this is a company that historically has refused to lower prices. And when a worldwide pandemic hit, and this is what many former Games Workshop employees have directly said to me in private chats, is when the pandemic hit, they basically saw the dollar signs in their eyes. They did price rises in the middle of last year, in the middle of it all, and they did not care because they saw it as a situation to exploit. And that's really sad.
And that's also why we kind of don't even bother discussing the other options, because yes, they could do other things. They absolutely could go, all right, we are a physical product and we are entering into a digital world. We're going to have to digitalize. We're going to have to sell basically like blueprints for 3D printing models, maybe even make a digital version of the tabletop and lower prices, make it actually competitive and actually realistically priced, because that's not GW. And I imagine they will genuinely see their IP burn to the ground before they do that.
I mean, they could do something like Tabletop Simulator.
Oh god, yeah.
Imagine that. They brought out a Games Workshop tabletop simulator. Even work with the developers of that game. You know, throw a few dollars their way and say, hey, do this. We'll license it to you, and you can sell it as a Games Workshop branded thing, and you give us, 15% cut of the profits or something. Holy crap! You know.
Again, for how many years have we said this? For how many fucking years have we said, just digitalize it? It would be super simple and you would have endless monetization opportunities. You could literally bring back the bits system. Like, let me pay you $1 for this helmet. Let me pay you $1 for this gauntlet. And then I can customize it in any way I want. It would be really easy. It would be super popular. People would love it. And that would spread the Games Workshop brand more than anything. But they just won't. I don't know if it's pride or just kind of pig-headedness, but they won't.
One of the funniest things they could do is because they clearly just want to have vanilla factions. The Space Marine's a great example. They don't want to make what they did for 30k. They don't want to have custom chapters everywhere. They hate it. And they show they hate it by doing so little with the concept. So you have a huge library of different chapters you can explore with 40k. There's 1,000 chapters to pick from. And yet, what we get is basically variations on Ultramarines. Even the Blood Angels and the Salamanders, and they're nowhere near as interesting as they are in a game like the Horus Heresy. What they could do is just focus on that vanilla range, just do the Ultramarines, and then find someone that they really like on Shapeways, like a Pop Goes the Monkey, and license it out to them and say, hey, you can create all the custom iconography you want, because no matter what, at the end of the day, what people at Games Workshop seem to forget is they're upgrades to the models Games Workshop makes. Therefore, Games Workshop still sells a model, even if someone else's shoulder pads go on it. And they license it out to someone like Pop Goes the Monkey, and with the condition like we have to approve your design, and then that's it, done. They've taken away the fact that they now have to create all these dies and custom parts that they're not interested in. They get a licensing fee off that person, percentage of the profits, whatever it may be, and that person gets to produce the content they want. There's no copyright strike there, and if someone infringes upon, is making their own pauldrons that conflict with that person, well, that's for them to decide and duke it out over. Games Workshop's eliminated themselves from that stream, but that's, for whatever reason, not a route they've chosen. They want to try and have complete micromanagement of the in-house, I guess. I don't know.
It seems like it. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And the only, again, sense I can see it making is if they want to monopolize it all. Like, they don't want any competition, no matter how small or how necessarily insignificant or how separate from their own product. They want to keep all of it. And again, the only reason I can see why they would want to do that is if they are trying to create that walled garden where they can kind of push it as a value in and of itself. Like, we own everything here. This is all ours, and you could have it for this price, Mr. Hasbro executive.
I wonder if they're going to go to Hasbro with the inflated price too. Uh,
Oh, they will. Because they tried to sell to Hasbro previously, you might recall, and Hasbro said no, you're not greedy enough, which must have come as a shock to Games Workshop. Like, really? Holy shit. We can be worse?
oh yes. Well, it's okay. Here's a question I'd like to ask you. What is the minimum amount of content you would need to see to subscribe to a streaming service like Warhammer Plus? Ignore that it being a Games Workshop property even. Just someone offers a streaming service for their board game. What's the minimum amount of content you need as a person to go, all right, you've got my interest?
Like, honestly, for stuff like of this level, right? Battle reports, painting tutorials, their lore videos, which are bloody commercials. I mean, daily. Like, treat that shit like a YouTube channel. And I expect that to be a YouTube channel run by a company. I want daily fucking content out of that. And I want large scale animations. Again, 1 minute animations every 3 months? That's fine for one dude. You're a multi-million-dollar company. You do better. You know? I would probably expect like at least one full budget, like 10-minute animation a month, probably, at least.
But you see, even per month, a 10-minute animation, is that enough? I wouldn't be interested in that personally. I don't know. I'm old fashioned. I like a long, slow burn product, something that goes for a couple of hours, draws me into the world, builds that world up. Because I think one of the things that's really going to hurt Games Workshop here is because you have to demonstrate the world that it exists in. It's not something you can just plonk a person straight into the middle of. You have to establish this universe. Because the minute you have someone who's not familiar with the IP come in, like it's one thing to see Space Marines, yes, but when they see that Space Marine get shot through the heart, stand up and keep going, they're going to have questions because they don't know what the biology of an Astartes is. So
Why
you can't,
he not dead?
you can't start with something like that. So you have to scale it right back. Do you go to like the Cadian infantry soldier or something, and it's like, okay, here is a basic human in the Imperium. He's just a conscript in this war, and oh god, there's Tyranids, something that's kind of easy to understand. Oh, okay, they're bugs, and they're attacking these humans. That's a basic concept I understand. Whereas if you do something like a warp rift opens, demons start spilling out, and they're fighting the Grey Knights who are using psychic powers and force weapons on them, the person who's watching it is going to be like, what the hell is happening? I don't know what any of this is. Where did those things come from? What are the rules in play here? I don't get any of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that being a major problem. So you might not be able to do that little 10-minute animation because you try and do that 10-minute animation, it's going to leave people confused for that reason. So they're going to have to do something smart, like bring out an animation that says, like a Leonardo da Vinci style drawing that says, this is an Astartes. They were created by the Emperor, and do like lore videos as like a background to their series before they can actually show them. Because right now they're relying on people understanding the IP, I think, going into this, which is great for the people already in the game. But what happens when they want to try and draw in that new blood because they need to show that ever expanding consumer base, that growth?
That is
I
going
don't
to
know
be
if
far
I've
more
just
difficult.
I don't know if I just droned on too long. I'm sorry, but it's a big problem.
It is. And again, they could maybe just refer this to other people, but they've already started copyright striking a lot of the people they might otherwise refer to. And I think they're going to go after content creators. I very much so think. I definitely think they're going after lore, and I probably think they're going to go after even just the like hobby commentary people as well, simply because they want that absolute monopoly. They want to be able to release things when they want, how they want, without any rumor mongering. And they might keep up some channels depending on how positive they are towards their content, shall we say. And they might even start handing out licenses where they basically say, hey, here's a contract. This contract says you don't get to say anything mean about us, and we tell you when you get to release news, and we will allow you to live, basically.
That's essentially what they already do for the people that they hand out their demonstration boxes to. So any of the
Yes.
painting channels you see that get a starter set, a new starter set, or whatever it might be, or a Beast Snaggers box, they get something like that. They're held to that non-disclosure agreement currently, where they just have to sit on that product, but they get sort of first dibs to showcase it.
Mm-hmm. Which is, I hate it too. And there's nothing you can really do about it because it's a contract between them and the company, but it is a contract I would never sign. A contract which says, hey, here's a product, you don't get to speak about it in a way that we don't like. Like, that's. If you're doing an ad for it, sure. But that's not a review. That's not an impartial look. That's not a you looking at a hobby thing. That's you being a commercial, you know?
That is, yeah, you're grinding on a nerve there. That I have said to several people in the past, like, what is the point of watching, Channel X? Because Channel X only ever says the positive things about Games Workshop. Now they may consider that I'm Channel Z and I do only the negative things or something. That's fine. But if you're only ever getting the positive feedback, is the information the channel's giving you any relevance? I would say no, because you are getting the same information you would get if you hopped onto their website and you got an advert.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. It would be the same experience. And hell, their subscription service would probably give you a flashier version of it as well, with graphics and spinning models and shit. Like, look at this.
And I mean, it kind of goes to show in that their release cycle has been all over the shop lately, just trying to pump out. You got Sisters of Battle, and then a few months later, it's, oh, here's more Sisters of Battle. By the way, they're not in your last codex. By the way, here's a new codex. Buy it.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't engender good faith in people, and I don't think that approach is sustainable long term. And I think they know it, and it's the rats fleeing the sinking ship. Exploiting the IP for all it's worth before they go. Like, at least in the case of Warhammer Fantasy, they had the good grace to put the gun to the head of it and pull the trigger. With Warhammer 40k, it's like misery. It's chained to the bed, getting its knees broken.
It is. I don't even. I don't know. It's a weird topic to talk about, frankly, because
It's a depressing topic to talk about.
it's dangerous. It's difficult to wrap your head around it, frankly. Like, it's because more and more I look at it, I can't escape the conclusion that this is a dying hobby, because the moment a hobby starts going after its fandom, and you get rid of the fandom and you turn it into advertisement, into trademarked official get your product here kind of stuff, I can't see that being interesting. Like, surely the soul of the thing will be lost in this.
The Holy Trinity was always build, paint, play.
Mm-hmm.
And they encouraged you to build, to create your own world. And they have, these marketing catchphrases like our world, your hobby type thing. But they don't encourage it. They're moving away from kits that you can, customize and put all the parts onto. The way they write their rules now, you're not customizing weapons and converting models, and they've moved away from that approach. And I think it works against them, because that's, I think, what drew people in originally was, I can make whatever I want of this universe. And when you start destroying the fan created content, the fan artwork, the fan animations, you're taking that away from them. And you're leaving people with a very vanilla product, very bland substance at the end of the day, where, yeah, it's produced by a professional company and it has all the, the accoutrement that goes with that, but at the end of the day, it doesn't have that feeling of unique passion that an individual brings to it, who is driven not by the motivation of wealth, but by the motivation of I want to make this thing.
Hmm. This is a thing that I want to make. This is my passion. This is the thing I want to do. And you can see that in original Warhammer very, very clearly. It's I want to make Germany, but with tanks in the Renaissance, and I want to have it next to medieval France slash Arthurian Britain, and then I want hooligans that are green to be over to the east. Like, that's absurd, and I love every bit of it.
And I'm going to have Aztec lizards fighting against evil sacrifice elves
Yes, and the Aztec lizards came from space, damn it.
in their flying pyramids. I mean,
Yes.
sure, why not? It's and they take, and that's what made the IP so wonderful, was they took all these creative concepts from all these other sources, put them in a blender, and spat Warhammer out the other side. And when you go back to those early editions, there was some crazy ideas, but a lot of stuff you saw in those early editions was inspired by pop culture heavily, and it's only grown and evolved over time. And it feels like the same thing's happening in the fan community, but it's being cut off at the knees. That natural evolution that brought all this interesting depth to the world, because Warhammer 40k didn't form fully fleshed out. Primarchs were just commanders in a force. Space Marines were just regular humans in fancy armor. All that lore, that background, it grew over time and expanded as they found their feet, and because the guys who were involved in it genuinely cared. And the growth of the Space Marines and the chapters and the background over second and third edition, the foundation sort of editions, is very different to now, where it's like, oh geez, we need to release a new product line. I don't know, some Mechanicum dude did it.
Yep, some Mechanicum dude did it, and we got Space Marines again. Buy Space Marines. You like Space Marines, right?
Yeah. Please buy more. Oh, can I use all my old Space Marine vehicles? Not with the new guys.
Yeah, no, we're replacing those because we already sold those. Oh, I
don't
hate
know.
Cole so much. Oh god,
Primarius
I hate Cole so much.
Belisarius suit. Yeah,
I
no, it's
fucking all of it.
yeah, it's a horrible circumstance, because I want that passion, because people all the time, oh, you're salty, you're salty, you're salty. Why do you hate the company so much? Why don't you just give up the hobby? I do not hate the hobby. I love the hobby. I think the long-term health is at stake of the hobby. Because rather than making a sustainable product, they're going for maximum wealth. And whilst, yes, you have an obligation to your shareholders to bring in wealth, you also have an obligation to keep that wealth coming in.
Yeah,
People
this is
forget
the
that
argument,
second
right?
half.
Oh, they need to make money. Don't you understand? They're a company. It's a company that sells 25 milliliter pots of paints for £6 fucking. They're making money. Relax, it's fine. They're not hitting the poorhouse anytime soon.
Imagine if they had a once a year sale. Just imagine like a
Imagine.
1 day a year random sale, and people didn't know when it was coming, just that it is, and they could place limits like so many products per customer or whatever it may be. They did that one, the amount of good grace they would get from the community. Holy crap, you could not fathom what the community would think if they heard, oh, you can get a Land Raider at half price next Saturday. They'd be like, what?
They'd sell out of Land Raiders.
Yeah,
Literally.
they would. And the thing is, they're so cheap to produce. And sorry, they paid for a mold once, therefore they have to go up in price annually on a model where the mold was created in 2001. That hurts me on a deep level.
Yeah, to make this clear too here, before we started this conversation, Macca and I had like a half an hour conversation about CNC machinery, milling, lathing, plastic injection tech. Like, you are a professional on this field.
Yeah, I actually run a plastic injection molding factory, and we create our own dies in-house.
Yeah, so you know a little bit about what it might take to create a plastic Land Raider.
Yeah, and nothing thrills me more than other people coming on this internet to say I don't know. That's my favorite. It feels really, really good. Brings a warm feeling to my chest. A small ball of unyielding rage, but it's a warm feeling nonetheless. And Yeah, it's one of those funny things where it's like you have products that. Great example, Eldar Aspect Warriors and their Phoenix Lords. Most of those models were created in the 1990s, 1994 for most of those Jess Goodwin sculpts. They're still being sold now, and they still get markups.
Yep.
Like,
Like, those
do we
molds
not
have
think the
paid for
development?
themselves.
Yeah, do we not think in 30 years the development costs were paid off? Or are we going to say it's shipping? You know, the shipping on blister packs is you're putting like one blister pack in like the flatbed of a truck with a big strap over that one blister pack, and then you got to pay for the whole truck. It's
Like,
it's a funny thing.
if this was a company that was constantly reimagining itself, maybe. But no, we still have striking scorpions that I remember seeing the first time I got into the hobby. Like, the Eldar Guardians are practically identical to the ones I saw when the Carnifex was called the Screamer Killer.
Wow, the most of the Eldar range hails. I did a video on it, and I worked out that it was something like 2/3 of the range are from like 2003 or earlier,
There you
and
go.
it's all the core stuff that you need. I went through, found the dates of production for each of the kits. It was like, grav tanks. The Falcon grav tank was, I think, the year 2000. I actually have the White Dwarf with it, and they show you how they sculpted it and how they made the dies at the time, which by today's standards is very primitive and actually more expensive because it was done with a stereolithograph machine. So a person actually had to sit there and trace over a 3 times scale grav tank every single millimeter of that surface. They had to trace over it with a stylus, which transmitted that data through an arm into a milling machine, and then it would mill out the die, and that's how they made it. Now, you design it in CAD, you put it straight in the milling machine. That's it. There's not a person sitting there on the product tracing every single millimeter of it for 7 days straight like it used to be.
Right. Also, to explain, CAD, computer aided design, it's a term for software that is used to interact or interface with machinery that actually make these things, that produce them, that actually make the finished model. And the spruces, of course. Yeah. Just to keep the technical language understandable.
Yeah, so I take it for granted.
Yes.
um, from coming from the field. But yeah, what people I don't think understand is it's almost like a computer game, very similar interface in a lot of ways because you
Yeah.
whatever you digitally create and sculpt, uh, you're not just limited to now having to put that sculpt into that one die. You can take parts of that model and attach them to parts of another model to create something unique, except you haven't taken anywhere near the time to create it because you've not done it from scratch. You just did the old copy and paste technique, and
Yep.
that's how most of their models are made. So the labor cost on sculpting has gone down dramatically because they're not sculpting from scratch anymore. You can make a single wireframe model of something like an Eldar Guardian, and then you want to make different poses for him. You just grab his arm and you just drag it in one direction, and grab his leg and drag it another way, and ta-da! It's a completely different sculpt.
Basically, the CAD program will have each and every part of the model divided into smaller subparts. Like the upper arm will be one part, the lower arm will be one half part, the helmet will be one part, etc. And you can have almost as much level of detail there as you want. For the Eldar, for example, you can take the helmet, which is kind of fairly similar in most Eldar units, and you can simply copy that across and then add on the details, like the little guns on the side of the stinging scorpion's head, and then you add on the tassels, and voila, you don't even need to do all of that from the beginning at all.
No, I mean we're greatly simplifying the process here, but just so people sort of
Yes.
understand where we're coming from. It's not like when Jess Goodwin made those original models and he had to sit there with every single individual striking scorpion in 1994 with green stuff in his hand,
And
mounted
actually
on a little bit of
sculpt them
wire.
out physically, yes.
Yeah, it's the yes, there is an initial investment of time in developing a new miniature from scratch. But that's it. If you can reuse those assets on something else, holy crap, does it cut down on your labor costs?
Yes, GW is earning money. Like, I can guarantee you that. In fact, the GW's biggest loss, I guarantee you, is the brick and mortar stores, which they only really maintain because it's kind of what they do. You know, it's kind of what they do. And even then, those stores are ran like mini medieval fiefdoms. Like I have got so many horror stories from people who have contacted me about like management retreats where like the bosses of these stores are taken to a place and they're told how to run their shops, and it's stuff like if a fan comes into the store and he just wants to play a game, try to get him out. Like if it's a person that just wants there to talk hobby, try and get him out. He's not a customer. If once he's bought something, he's irrelevant to you until the next sale. Like, disgusting. Like they're not building a community. They gave up on that.
It's ironic. It's ironic because their store is their biggest asset because it's what can pull people into the hobby. It's the one thing they've got over all their competition. They actually have a place where people can come in and see it and get the spiel. Whereas, Flames of War doesn't have that, Infinity doesn't have that. War Machine doesn't have that. You don't just walk down the street and see the Infinity store and I wonder what that is and wander on in. Games Workshop does have that, and they usually have them in pretty high traffic flow areas as well. So you get a lot of kids and school holidays and such running past, and they get drawn in. That's an asset, and they don't treat it as an asset. They treat it as just another arm of the marketing department to sell to people. They don't realize that if they fostered it and grew the community, that good word of mouth, means so much among people. And, it kind of goes hand in hand with just their overall tone and how they treat people in general. Like one of the big things I often complain about is things like Warhammer community. People go, Games Workshop's so good at engaging with the community. They have Warhammer community and a Facebook page. Like, yeah, when do you actually sit down and have a conversation with them? It's all one-way talk. It's advertising. Nothing more.
It is them saying to you, hey, here's our new shiny thing. Purchase.
Because I've asked them repeatedly, hey, what are you doing with the Horus Heresy? Because in my mind, there is no reason why they can't tell us what their plans are. There's no need for corporate secrecy. There's not industrial sabotage here where another brand is going to hear about and go, oh, wow, they're bringing out new World Eaters. Oh, I'm going to get in ahead of them and bring out my World Eaters first. It's not going to happen.
It's not a problem.
Especially not at the economy of scale Games Workshop functions on, because they're able to produce so much stuff in so little time thanks to having the best facilities of all the miniature manufacturers. They can get goodwill from the community simply by saying, hey, here's our 6-month plan. Here's what we're going to bring out over the next 6 months. And imagine the hype when it's like, oh, I know new Lizard Men are coming this month, or, in 6 months, and I know that new Bretonians are coming. Oh, what am I going to buy? Oh, I'm going to try and save up and get both. That's the sort of reaction people would have. Instead, it's just this radio silence until they're absolutely set in stone. Here is the release, and it comes in this really narrow window. It's a real shame. But I asked them, like, hey, what are you doing with the Horus Heresy? Like, nothing's been announced for months. You used to have weekly releases. Now we get 3 monthly releases. That's a big difference. What are your plans? Nothing. Complete silence.
Because they want. And the worst part is too, like they have their official signs, like the rumor mill. Like you mean your marketing strategy? That's what you mean. Like this isn't rumors. This isn't organic people going like, "Hey, I wonder what will happen next." This is a GW employee sitting down in front of a marketing schedule, going, "Right, time to tease the Space Marines again."
Well, they did the Road to Thramis for the Horus Heresy. It was like a 7-part series, I think, in the end, where every month they would release a single article on, Thramis is coming, book 9 of the Horus Heresy, the Road to Thramis, and they would keep saying it. And it got to the point where people were just commenting, geez, it's getting to be a pretty long road, guys.
And the road is long.
And then, you got to... Because the funny thing is, Games Workshop are never actually the ones to come out and defend Games Workshop. They stay radio silent on the matter. Even with all this controversy at the moment with IP infringement and such, there's no public statement release. There's no Gillette commercial going out to the public. There's no apologies. Instead, what you have is people in the community defend them. It's the community that says, oh, it's taxes and shipping is the reason for high prices. Never Games Workshop, they stay completely silent on the matter. And, one of the things that people like to say is, oh, you got to understand, Games Workshop works 2 years ahead on their products. And, the books are already printed, for example, for the Horus Heresy. They say something like that, and then they release a model. and then they release the PDF rules for that model online, and you notice the rules have a big typo. You point
Yes.
this out in a video because you're a hilarious YouTuber and modest as well. And then you say, hey, there's a massive typo here. Miraculously, they then fix that PDF the next week. And when the book drops a couple of weeks after that, the book drops with that typo fix. It's like, hang on a minute. They printed that book months ago. How come the
Not to
typo's
mention
fixed?
also the laziness of it. Like, you would think that having the ability to instantly correct mistakes, because mistakes happen, okay, fine. It's a massive book, maybe hundreds of thousands of words, etc. Cool, that's fine. But when they did their rules application, when they did their own little army builder and stuff, it was awful. Rules were missing, rules were mistyped, the cost were mistyped, some were even lacking stuff at all. And they're like, okay, so instead of making this better, you got lazier. And I don't see that trend changing. Like, I don't think if you give Games Workshop more money now, if you excuse them again, if you just say like, oh no, it's fine, we don't mind, I don't think that will make them go, oh, I see, we'll do better.
Their problem is their codexes has become like day one pre-alpha releases on video games. They come out full of faults, and then they're like, "Oh, we'll patch it later."
We'll fix it later. Don't worry. Pay for it now though, but we'll fix it later.
And then you get what they've just done with the Mechanicum, where they've now changed how they went. Oh, Skitarii are actually really overpowered, but they couldn't get that information prior to a few months going by. Like they couldn't figure it out for themselves, so it had to go out to the community, have a whole bunch of people buy their kits first, and now they're like, oh well, after everyone bought them, miraculously our minds have cleared, and we're able to see the problem and fix it.
It is literally the League of Legends thing when they got bought out and suddenly champions started being released that were hilariously overpowered, and then a month later they'd always get fixed. They're like, oops, oh, we're sorry. We totally didn't playtest this or anything. We didn't do any work on this. It was a complete accident that this unit is blatantly broken. Whoopsie poopsie. We'll fix it though in a month.
Oh, silly little me, I did it again. Yeah, I don't know. It's good that they do fix the things, don't get me wrong. It's all about time frames. If a person has bought a product...
it's good that they fix things, yes, but it's not good that they fix errors that they have put in on goddamn purpose.
Exactly. And again, it's time frames. If a product is sold, there's that reasonable expectation that the thing is going to hold up as you bought it for some period of time, that it's going to be arriving relatively devoid of errors, not full of them. And I think that's what people don't understand, because you get this really weird argument like, oh, it's just toys. It's just toys, man. Like, just don't worry about it. It's just a toy.
Like, it's
no,
just
it's an
toys.
exchange of...
It's just
yeah,
toys. It costs as much as a video game, but it's just toys.
Yeah, it's an exchange of goods and services. Like, if you want to buy a new 40k army, that's as much as a car. At what point do you say, yeah, it's a toy, but it's also, hundreds or thousands of dollars? That's
They're bloody expensive.
And I mean, good luck going to court with that. Oh, well, Your Honor, you see, it's just a toy. Oh, it's just a toy. Oh, case dismissed. No, the judge is going to be like, okay, what else you got for me? It's a toy, but he gave you money for this product. So does the product hold up to what the customer said? And that's where something like Curse City stands out to me. You've got Curse City, which is, oh, here's a product, we're going to support it long term, we're going to do lots of articles, we're going to do battle reports on it, release it, the next week, crickets and tumbleweeds. Disappeared completely, all mention of it from their website. No statement put out by the company, nothing. So is that not false advertising? I can't make a definitive legal statement on it, but that seems like a pretty cut and dry case to me.
There's the problem too, right? Because there is basically no way to argue this effectively. And that is what GW has figured out and why they are being so bullish about this. And it's why they aren't even sending out like proper cease and desists to people right now. The animators aren't receiving legal notices saying, you will do this or we will sue you, because now they're backed themselves into a corner. Instead, they're just sending out meanly worded letters, literal mafioso-esque shit. Like, oh, that's a lovely thing you've got there. It would be a shame if somebody broke your drawing hand, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's well, they couch, like you said, they couch the words in such a way as to make it seem authoritative.
Yes.
Like we are talking to you from a position of power. We are in the right here. You are
These
in the
are
wrong.
totally our rights. We've studied this. Just believe us.
Yeah. We didn't want to pay for an actual lawyer to look into this situation, but just trust us. We're right, you're wrong. And that again, when it comes to something like a parody, it's it depends how far a person is willing to push the matter because yeah, YouTube is they'll take down something at the drop of a hat. This is true. But you can stand up, you can ask for a review, and you can have YouTube side with you, without it even going to court. YouTube has stepped in many times for creators who've gone, no, this is BS, and quashed it right then and there. And the thing is, Games Workshop probably can't be stuffed. If enough people turn around and said, okay, sue me, they probably wouldn't do it because it's way more effort than the actual financial reward will be. They're going to spend more on lawyers to get these channels taken down than they'll ever recoup. So, if something is above board, and this is dependent on everyone's country to find out what their legal requirements are, just do you. You look after yourself. Don't worry about what they're saying to you. They say, oh, you can't imitate our models. What? I can't imitate a marine in, a human called a solar system warrior who wears a powered suit of armor. No, I can do whatever I like, thank you. I just can't make it exactly like yours because that seems to be where the law has fallen on the matter.
Mm-hmm. And that's another hurdle as well, though. Even if you had every intent in the world to try and take this down a legal route, that only also happens if YouTube allows it. If YouTube receives a copyright strike from Games Workshop, odds are they'll just go like, okay, well, we'll just delete all of this. In the case of a lore channel, too, if they sent in a copyright strike, an actual strike on 3 videos, my channel's gone. I won't even be allowed to say, like, oh, hold on a second there.
Yeah, but they had to demonstrate the copyright at some point if it went the legal route. And I mean, it depends as well. There's a lot of factors that play into it. But copyright, people have to understand, is very different to intellectual property. Like, actually holding a copyright is not an insignificant thing. Like, it's not just, I made something, therefore it's copywritten. That's not an automatic thing. You actually have to demonstrate that you own a copyright. And the one thing that sort of has hurt YouTube is they don't ever require proof of someone until it's challenged to show that they own the copyright.
Yes. Well, it
So
is a bit of
I've
a
had this.
problem, but delving into the many failings of YouTube is yet another subject, I suppose.
In a lot of ways, I'd say worse than Games Workshop.
Yes, I have even less rights when it comes to YouTube than when it comes to Games Workshop, which is saying something.
And I mean, at the end of the day, we do not hate Games Workshop. Like, just to be crystal clear, we hate the corporate practices that go on above because the relationship between the customer and the company is a mutual relationship. We have rights, they have rights. They want to sell us something, we want to buy something, and we meet in the middle. And right now, that relationship is skewed very much in they have all the rights, and there's not meeting in the middle. They're walking right up, standing in our face, and going, "This is how it is, bitch." And that's the problem I have. It's like there's no reason why something like Forge World needs to be regionally priced. The product is made in the UK with UK labor. So if a person's, the person making the model's wage is the same, whether they sell it to Australia, whether they sell it in the UK, there's no reason why that sale has to go up by 60 to 100% just because it's going to my country. The only reason they did it was because they said, fuck it, I think we can do it.
Yep, I think we can get away with it.
Yeah. So like the amount of goodwill you'd breed just by reversing a policy like that, but they don't want to do it. Why don't they want to do it? Because they want money.
It's money in the bank.
So, and pointing that out people have to understand there's nothing wrong with pointing it out. It's just that is what it is. That's the objective situation. You know, the shipping's paid for by the customer, so that's not what's causing the price to rise. You know, the taxes to import something into Australia, the import tariffs and the goods and services tax combined is less than the UK VATs. You know, so there's no reason why it should cost more. If anything, it should cost slightly less. But that's not the situation we see. And at one point, Arch, it was so expensive when the world was still open, I could actually fly from Australia to England, get a train to Nottingham, buy a Warlord Titan, go back to Australia, and I would actually come out cheaper than if I just bought it from here.
That sounds logical and very GW. That's how it should work. I mean, you could argue that that was their plan all along. They wanted to increase customer contact in that way.
I don't think I'd be allowed in Warhammer World. I think if I got there, it'd be like, you know, Hellraiser walking into the church or something.
I want to go to Warhammer World at some point just for the fun of it, because I imagine that would be amusing.
It would be, and the thing is, I like the people at the bottom end of the company. You know, I've a lot of time for mini games workshop managers because most of them are actually pretty decent people. They're good hobbyists and they want to grow their communities. It's the people above them that are the cancer in the organism that take that goodwill and they turn it into a negative asset, a negative attribute.
And they are the people who are now, I firmly believe, going to try and sell the entire hobby over to an even more soulless corporate overlord.
Just makes you feel wonderful inside, doesn't it?
It really does. It really does. Anywho, I think we've had a good little rant on the topics at hand, so unless you've got something else to add?
No, just thanks for having me on. It's always fun to have a chat, and I look forward to being able to chat again with you in the future, hopefully about something more interesting than this depressing subject.
Very welcome, and I'm happy to have had you on. You're a very good guy, you know? And you're one of the few people who are actually willing to call them out on their bullshit, so us fellow negative people must stick together.
The salt must flow. The
Yes.
salt must flow.
Like grains of salt in the sand on a beach.
Sure,
Very
why not?
important. Anyhow, thank you all very much for watching, and hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.